Okay, two things I wanted to talk about this week. I got some good news and I got some bad news. The good news, the first story is if you've been waiting to play Star Wars Jedi Survivor and you still have a last gen console, well, believe it or not, the time is here for you. Yeah, this is a weird story. There's a little bit more to it, but EA has officially announced that Star Wars Jedi Survivor is coming to PS4 and Xbox One consoles September 17th of this year. Yes, 2023's Jedi Survivor, a game from last year that I really enjoyed, is coming to PlayStation and Xbox. Basically, those consoles, the PS4 particularly, just won't die. Leading me really to just wonder, to believe, is this one of the last games to be released on PlayStation 4? The releases, of course, have been dwindling, and now with Jedi Survivor, it also probably feels like it's going to be pushing the PS4 to the limit, not because it's the most advanced game in the world, but when it released on PS5 and Xbox Series X and PC, it had technical issues. I mean, the PC port was a mess when it launched. Not to mention the fact that if you look on Steam reviews today, people are still complaining about the optimization of that game. So for them to finally ambitiously cram this on PS4, that's interesting, but it's definitely something I would say probably wait for reviews. And I think this is always an interesting talking point, specifically with like the PS4 not dying, specifically because people, especially like hardcore gamers like us, like, you know, we're deep in this like news world. It's always so quick for us to dismiss people still playing on those consoles, right? Like, oh, how could you still be playing on that old console? Well, everybody's situation, financially, access to new consoles, whatever, is different. And honestly, with the PS4, it's living on for so long and people are still playing that. And publishers are still putting games out on this thing specifically because of the footprint it left. It's PlayStation's second best-selling console behind the PlayStation 2, you know, the biggest, the GOAT of all time. The PlayStation 4, according to Wikipedia, sold 117.2 million units, coming in behind the PlayStation 2's 155 million. Not only is that a crazy number, but what makes it even wilder when you look at everything, and with a game from 2023, it's been 10 years. The PlayStation 4 released in 2013. That's absolutely wild. It's like one of the longest console generations, and it's really impressive. If Jedi Survivor is playable and like actually the proper game on PS4, I will be very impressed. EA did say that it will, and I quote, feature a variety of optimizations aimed at maximizing the hardware capabilities of the consoles. But again, we're just gonna have to wait to see for that. The jury is still out, but I just thought it was kind of interesting. The other news is the downer news. It involves GameInformer, the legendary magazine that has been around for 33 years, very quickly and suddenly and unceremoniously shut its doors. All employees working on the magazine and the website were laid off. The website was essentially instantly nuked, and that's it. GameInformer is no more. GameStop, the company that owns GameInformer, presumably put out this like half-assed statement online saying goodbye GameInformer, but thankfully some GameInformer people still had access to the social media, and they put out a real proper goodbye from the actual people that worked on the website, not just some like ChatGPT written freaking thing. But there's a lot I want to talk about this, if you'll humor me for a second. Number one, just because I am an enthusiast, I started doing this because I grew up loving and reading and obsessing over video game magazines. GamePro, EGM, Nintendo Power, and yes, GameInformer. But there's so many things to dive into, but the thing that pisses me off the most is, number one, it really sucks that people are now out on their ass. A lot of great people, very talented people were working at GameInformer to the end. A skeleton crew essentially was running a website and putting together and publishing a full magazine every month, which is absolutely impressive. It's easy to call it as like, oh yeah, well, print media is slowly dying, so the GameInformer shuttering makes sense. That's what some people will say. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. But I think what other people aren't really realizing, and as this is like the weird nerd in me, but like there is so much history lost with GameInformer. I don't think what people realize, what we really lost is just all this interesting archival stuff. There's so much you can see out there. Shout out to MinMax. They put out a video kind of touring one of the last GameInformer offices. But, you know, an office that had been running a real access video game journalism, whatever thing, that had been for over 33 years is sitting on a metric treasure trove of stuff. design documents, letters, notes, correspondence from developers, early information on games, never before seen art, promotional materials. There's stuff floating around in Game Informer offices, like I saw somewhere. There is like a tape of unfinished, like work in progress, unpolished Mario 64. Like, that's insane. There is so much that now is just completely lost from the physical end. It's just in an office somewhere behind locked doors in Minneapolis, but also on the digital front. You know, so many things were on that website, like decades worth of writing, articles, news, interviews, just documentation, just history. Even if you hate video game journalism, I don't know, it just still feels like there's so much that was lost there. And what is lost there is information, whether you like consuming that information, whether you agree or disagree with that information, it is still like years and years of information that is now lost. Some stuff is archived, thank you to, like, you know, the Wayback Machine, Internet Archive, whatever they're called, and some writers backing up some of their work, but it's still a mess, and so much stuff is at risk, and it just makes you think how quickly information can just disappear. And as someone who loves video game preservation and history, and not just with the games themselves, but all the information and articles and things around it, it's a huge loss. It's a big bummer. Not to mention the fact that, like, Game Informer was just getting back into a good groove with putting out a physical magazine again. They had kind of released a new model, a pretty affordable model to subscribe that was detached from the GameStop bullshit where you had to like subscribe and be a GameStop member and stuff like that. I've recommended it on the Game Ranks Friday show. I've recommended it on here. I said, hey guys, Game Informer is doing a magazine again. It's like cheap, it's basically ad-free, and it's just a good magazine every month. Like, look, I got them right here. I got on my little table. They only put out like 3 or so issues. I got, you know, Hades 2, Star Wars, Dragon Age, stuff like, and that's it, I guess. We might get another one. I've talked to some of the guys working at Game Informer. They don't know if another issue is going to come out or not that they were working on. And that's it. So I have these new ones, and I have my treasure trove of old Game Informer magazines I've been sitting on for years and years. I know a lot of you guys probably have too. So it's a shame. It does feel like they were just getting onto something good. And I say that because it can be argued that print media is not completely dead or dying. It just has to be done differently. It has to be kind of given a boutique approach. On the Friends Per Second podcast, which you will see a couple of days after this video, we spoke to some folks from Game Informer. And, you know, Alex from Game Informer, formerly from Game Informer, argued that like a magazine can be profitable, can be done right if it is done, you know, within the proper constructs, not held to the standards of like a giant corporate organization looking down saying, why aren't you doing the numbers of like IGN or whatever? But there are a few things out there that still exist, like Edge Magazine, that has happy subscribers that are fulfilled, that is a small team, not to mention the fact that like on other industries, Fangoria, my horror fans, that is back. Again, that is apparently doing well as this like quarterly hard stock and just genuinely nice magazine. There was a time where like some of these magazines were the only place you could get a look at something or the information on something, and that can still kind of continue. I mean, Game Informer was getting all kinds of exclusives and like reveals of games that no other media outlet did. And that's another thing that I want to point out that is lost here with Game Informer is Game Informer because they were huge at a point. They debuted like the first look at so many games, sometimes early in that process. A game would be revealed mid-development with a cover story or concept art that like the game didn't end up even looking like that upon release. Like, you know, not just like a graphics downgrade, but like actual design choices and complete flips. I remember the cover story for Borderlands. The game tonally didn't even really end up looking like that cover. I believe one of the Witcher games had that as well. There was the cover with Max Payne 3, where it was like when Max Payne 3 was first revealed, and then it kind of went dark for a few years and then came back. There's so much there. It's just like a cool, interesting, weird little thing in video game history. So many people have worked at Game Informer and then went on to do even more incredible things that like shakes and like makes a difference in the gaming industry, behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, whatever. So everybody who unfortunately got laid off, I expect the same things to happen to them because they're all really badass. I'm confident that everybody will land on their feet. But again, my concern is just that history loss, and not really just Game Informer, but whatever else down the line. I just thought it was something to think about, keep top of mind. Shout out to the Video Game History Foundation for documenting some stuff from GameInformer offices, thankfully. And thanks to other folks that like former people from GameInformer like MinMax for doing cool new stuff and also documenting some old stuff and stories and videos. There are so many eras that, I think people like all different types of genre fans, gaming news fans look back on fondly. I thank that magazine. I thank it for like those like 33 freaking years of service. That is a wild run. So much information, cool reveals, game news, stuff like that. The traditional gaming media is changing. It's shifting. We'll talk about that in another video, but I just kind of wanted to send off something I really enjoyed as a consumer. And if you are new around here, this is, I'm calling it Two Things. Every week, every Wednesday, I'm making a video picking 2 gaming news topics I really wanted to talk about. The Game Ranks Friday news show, I talk about all the news, but sometimes I want to drill down into specific topics that I just find interesting or something I just want to chat about. So if you like what I'm trying to do here, I'm just talking about stuff I love, and I'm still doing regular videos, just randomly here and there. Clicking the like button helps me. Thank you. I'm here now every Wednesday. That's it. I'm Jake Baldino. Subscribe because video games. Pizza's on me. Oh, and let me know your favorite GameInformer cover. Were you like me? Were you like a 12-year-old and you got one in the mail and you were like, holy shit? Do you have any memories like that? Let me know. Anyway, I already did my outro, but yeah, goodbye.